Welcome to the second episode of Listening Conversations with Plants. Today we're going to have a conversation about conscious relationships with plants. And to do that, I've invited my wonderful partner, Stephan, into his own little house to be part of the conversation. Hi, Stephan.
Hi.
And together with us, we have two cups of cacao. We have some cacao from Guatemala, some cacao from Mexico, a little bit of blue lotus, and some homemade almond milk. Yeah, it's a good witch's wizard brew to start off this conversation. Hi, Stephan.
Hi, Eva.
Would you like to share a few words on you or your connection to plants?
Where to start? From the beginning, I guess. I think we all start up with an unconscious connection to the plants. I was growing up in a small village with a lot of forest around the river and beautiful garden of my grandma, so I was surrounded by nature all the time, and for me it was kind of normal. And first going away from there and exploring the cities and doing other work in the bigger cities, at one point nature was calling back again. So I went back into a vision quest, and one of the answers in that vision quest was that Mother Earth is healing her children. We just have to come closer to her. So there's the whole animal life, but I was drawn more to the plants. So since then, I think it's a journey somewhat back, but also beyond.
It's while you're talking, there's a lot of wind around us, and I can just hear it, and it's a full moon, and I can just hear this almost like magic in the air coming in while you're talking. Stephan and I met each other in the jungle of Peru. We had kind of the same inner clock of going to this beautiful tree, and so we start meeting under this tree every day, and from there on our connection started sprouting.
Yeah, it's a connection to the tree and
yes,
to the
and
two
to
of
each
us.
other, and from that we created our company, I guess you call it, Mighty Tree. And so today my idea, my hope, but let's see where the conversation goes, was to try to take this idea of plant connections down on a not using so many plant lingo, but more of a human world lingo, human world language to talk about. And so to start that, I think the thing that comes up for me is that we all have relationships to plants every single day. They can be more or less conscious and more or less intentional, or respectful, but we all have it. If it's a cotton blouse we're wearing, or if it's a coffee that we're drinking, or if we're eating French fries, or if we're eating animal products, those animals have been living off plants. Right now we're sitting in a house built of wood and wood fiber insulation.
Somehow it feels isolated.
Yeah, well, from the wind outside, that's the point of a house. One of the points. Thank you, house. And so what we eat, what we wear, what we live in, it all comes from nature. And so those relationships can be unintentional and unconscious in a way of just consuming. If we were to talk about food in that way, that would be just, eat whatever comes up and just do it fast and sit in front of your computer while you do it, or eat a burger in your car, or whichever way. And a more conscious relationship might be if you're thanking the food before you eat it, or if you are conscious of the journey that your coffee has taken, where it has been growing. Maybe you even have a picture of who grew it and harvested it. And if you have a relationship to that plant. Like right now we're sitting behind the camera is all of our sprouts that are sprouting. And some of the things that were sprouting this year is also stuff like barley, or lentils. I'm trying to get going exotic barley. But what's really interesting about it is actually seeing how does the plant look. How does the plant of a barley look, and how much barley comes out of it. So when we make a bread with barley, being able to see and understand this is the work that this plant is doing.
That is basically what preschool in Steiner is doing. So it's a nice way of getting in contact with reality. For us as well, digging in our garden and planting all those things, that brings back the connection to the roots, to how it's growing, how it's planted, how to take care of it. And therefore a very different connection exists.
Yes.
Yeah, where have we been?
Yeah. So when we're talking about relationships with plants, we mean it to relate to something, meaning to, how to say that with other words. It is the same as relating to other humans, and some humans we might be very close to, like a partner or a best friend. Some people we might, if we go to the same grocery store every time, there might be a person in there that works there that we in that way know, or we don't know that person, but we're seeing that person, so we have a relationship to that. Or
relationship can also be beyond the personal relation, so it can also have a relationship to a plant, which is kind of your boss.
Yeah.
So all sorts of relation, from friendship to a contractor, all what you find in humans you can find with the plants as well.
So this conversation, we want to invite anybody who's listening to kind of take the step beyond saying humans is the only thing conscious in this world, and that's the only thing you can relate to, and saying, what if you could relate to everything? What if everything had a consciousness, and everything had wisdom and a personality, so to speak? So if you see different plants as different people or plant people, then they would have their own personality, their own ideas of how they want to live their lives. And
don't know if we can go that loop about what we're talking about. Especially the English language brings that up, that we talk about, so to speak, the humans and the creation. So we're making a distinction between humanity and all the rest. So we're putting attributes, he or a she, to the humans. We write them in capital letters, but as soon as it's coming to everything outside of our human community, we write it in small letters, and it becomes an it. So it doesn't get a language of a personality, where in other languages this distinction is not made. So it's just to become aware that just because we're talking about a thing, it might be only the restriction of language which brings it up.
Yeah.
And of course, on the other way around, language restricts itself to something we think, so it reflects our thinking.
I think that's a really good point, that kind of all languages is based on a cosmology, and if you in that cosmology believe that humans are more worth than animals or than plant life, so programmed into us that we don't even ask questions about it. I mean,
and language is is the main thing we relate to each other.
we relate through that, and we talk, we have conversations, and I
Just
think
to go a step from the English one, if you go to the German, there you have every thing has an he or an she, but that is also at one point they made that up. So it's not about that in the original language this is masculine and feminine. No, it was just, or this sounds like more feminine, we put a she in front, and this sounds more like masculine, we put a he in front. So even in the German language, where we have those male and female in parenthal, also the Spanish one, it is not necessarily meant that this has a personality. It's just made, but still the distinction between human and the rest of the.
I'm thinking about it when you say that, like, for instance, in many languages, the moon would be considered, if you have feminine and masculine, then the moon would be a feminine thing and the sun would be a masculine thing, which again makes this construction, oh, so, but what if there are cultures where the sun has been a feminine deity? So, like, so again, we're thinking, oh, this is always, well, fire, sun, that's masculine. Well, because it's part of the way that we have, or the cosmology or the idea of it. So to go back to plants, for us, relating to plants is both a practice, it's what we based a lot of our work about, but also our own practices, and it's something that's really enriching our lives. And that is all different types of relationships. So that can be praying before I eat, for instance. It can also be going to local farms to buy groceries versus going to a big supermarket. It is buying secondhand, those sort of things. But it is also, and like growing our own plants, getting a relationship to how is it grown, what kind of energy does this plant have, and then there's this whole spiritual part of it, which is really, plants are my teachers. Some of my plants I'm have a closer relationship to than some humans. And that's kind of the world we want to open up for as well. Yeah. I'm thinking about, to honor the plant that we're sitting, there's several plants, but the main plant that we're sitting and having a conversation with and around today is also cacao. And maybe just starting there, we have already started the conversation, but what is your relationship to cacao? How would you see your relationship?
I experience cacao most in the background. So it's one of those, I would say, plant medicines which can open up to so many different realms. So some people drink cacao and they are into dance, some others go more into the meditation space. For me, cacao is what is she? She opens up my heart, my mind. She helps me to center. And she is like a good friend of showing me the signs on the road. So as if she has sometimes the map in her hand and, yeah, Stephan, let's go over there. That's a good idea. Let's walk a little bit. And she's very friendly and not pushy in any ways. But she has her demands as well. So following her, it's always a friendly invitation. Going down the road with her means that we can come in contact with some emotions, which might also a little bit be unpleasant. And that, I think, has mostly to do with her heart opening qualities. It's always said the idea might be the heart opening, that must be something very beautiful, and then I'm in love, and then everything is fine. But the reality is, heart opening means that we open doors to spaces in us which want to be looked at. We want to free our heart from negative emotions, and to freeing it means we have to open the door to them. And opening the doors means we feel it, we see that, we be with it. And then at one point we might have a bigger space in our heart, which is what we call a heart opening. We are capable of feeling all the emotions without being stuck into them. And she is one of the guides I know of really helping us doing that work.
Beautiful. I would like to mention just with that like with cacao being a heart opener, very in the physical realm, the medicine of ceremonial cacao. So we're not talking about chocolate from your normal local grocery store. We're talking about ceremonial grade cacao, which means pure cacao. Nothing has been added, nothing has been taken away, and it's minimal processed, and the people who have been working with it have gotten decent salary and putting in love. And the energy today is a little loco. Our neighbor also just decided to start using a huge machine gun. I was about to say make a lot of building noise, so there's going to be a few cuts from when that noise is a little too much. And we were over talking with him, and should have a half an hour now without machine noise. So let's
see if our other neighbor will do that.
Yeah, maybe the other neighbor will start with something. Yeah, they are great teachers. great noise teachers. But I actually think it's a really good, if we're talking about cacao right now, we're sitting here and trying to have a conversation one direction, and like, these are different types of relationships to plants, and what is it, and let's have a conversation that's linear. And what's happening is cacao is showing us completely like, here's a process, this is something you haven't dealt with, your neighbor's making a lot of noise, and it's disturbing for you, so look at that. That's the reality. Yeah, that's the reality of our present moment right now. And it isn't just like peachy and look at all our sprouts and everything is great. It is great, and at the same time there's the noise of the machines next door, and that's life. And for me, actually, cacao is, but many plants for me have that teaching. And I think essentially there are many parts of it, but one major part, as I see it, is that plants in general cannot run away. We humans and animals, we can run away from our problems, and we try to do that a lot, both physically if there's a bear coming, but also with all of our stress and all of the things we don't want to deal with. I definitely have an email in my inbox I don't want to deal with right now that's been laying a few days. And so we can run away, and plants can't. So plants in general are really good at teaching us stay present in the moment and be with what is right now. They have their receptors, their senses really out, because if you cannot run away, you need to be really aware, really present right here in what goes on, to see, do I need to, is there a bacteria coming right now that isn't good for me, that I need to change whatever goes on in my leaves so it doesn't do this. Or if there's a insect bile thingy coming and starting eating of, what do I do? So plants are really good at being present and teaching us to deal with our stuff right here. And different plants have different ways of dealing with that. Some plants put in things in their leaves that will start being toxic for the animals eating them. Other plants call in the animals, the predators of the animals that are eating them. So they're like calling in another animal, and like there are all these really sophisticated ways of dealing with their issues, which when plants are our teachers, they're really good at teaching us.
Yeah, if you go into evolutionary theory, then the plants have been here for millions of years before us. So they were the first species, so to speak, which were crawling from the water to the land. So when algae become moss, and from there on the ferns and trees are developing. So they know a bunch more of what we are about. About being in the world and the ways of the world. Especially for us, I think we are very much connected to the trees, so they usually live longer, and as you said, they don't run away. And just to come back to the language of the plants, so of course they don't talk like we do. And the first thing we can maybe getting a glimpse of what they want to tell us is to look at what language do they speak, how do they express themselves. So if you look at the willow tree or at the birch, by example, both of them are very flexible and swinging around in the wind. An oak, not at all. Rather a whole branch breaks off before I move. That would be the sentence of an oak. And oak is a sturdy thing, and yeah, it speaks that in that voice. So, and if you listen to birch, it speaks in a softer voice. Doesn't mean that the one or the other one is stronger. That is just the way they are and presenting their strength. So with all the plants, we can see how they grow, so we also know how they are. So at least this is the first idea.
Yes. I just think it's interesting you're mentioning oak, and that's usually this symbol of this strong plant, right? But if you see, and oaks are amazingly strong, and they're beautiful, powerful spirits, and in the physicality as well. Oaks are really good standing alone. Also with others, but like if you have an oak in the middle of a field, it can just stand there, and it can just stand there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it just continues. But if you have an oak within a beech, and beech in Danish is bøg, beech forest, then beech will slowly, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, crawl up through the crown of the oak and come up higher, and then start taking the light from the oak, and then after some time the oak will die. Like beeches they thrive with their friends. They're like, I'm getting my buddies, and they could just swing around and go up and take it, so it's like strength in what way? We're so used to seeing strength in a simple simplicity of the old masculine way, but there's so many ways of being strong, like you're saying with the birch tree. It's very, very versatile. It's one of the pioneer trees. It's one of the first ones coming after the Ice Age to the area we're in Denmark, and it can just grow, and it can grow with everybody else, and
Yeah, if you know something
yeah.
about a birch, and if you have a sewage pipe running through your
Mm.
property and the birch grows next to it, better make sure that there's no gap in that sewage pipe, because birch
Yes.
will put their roots in there. And so she is as well. So
Yes.
she comes with fine roots, searching for the very small entries, and is there, present.
Yeah, so one relationship with a birch tree, for instance, would be you have a birch tree in your local forest and you walk by it once a month. And you see it when you walk by. That's a relationship already. Another one might be that every time you see it, you actually go and sit under it. And you might not even talk officially with the spirit and feel that you have, but I think we all have those sort of relationships where we go somewhere and we start feeling safe, or we feel calm, or maybe we feel sad. Like, sadness is such a door opener to so many things. And again, speaking of cacao and speaking of opening up the heart, for me, if I have not given myself permission to really feel myself in a long time, one of the first things that comes up isn't joy, but it is sadness, or this kind of yucky feeling. There's like, ugh. And it is with being with them that things can start opening up.
It's just when you said having a relationship by having a birch somewhere, I would just say, if you want to start in that direction of getting in contact with such a tree or a plant, or cacao, or your coffee, or whatever plant you think about, if you think about a person like this has a personality, then it's just simply as we would do it with any other foreign person. So we first want to introduce ourselves. And this doesn't mean that we have to talk to that. We can do that in our mind, I believe. And experience shows that plants are listening to that. They are beyond the noise-making part. But yes, introduce yourself and ask yourself, am I allowed to come near? Because this is your space. So.
And you can't run away from me, so let me honor that you chose to stand here, or at least.
Yeah,
well,
am I allowed to come even nearer? And it's all about your feelings, your intuition about that. And sometimes there's a no. So it was hard for me at the beginning to accept that there is no permission.
Yes, yeah.
Because in my, I would say, Western human mind, I was just, but I can go over and I take my knife and I cut a branch up if I want to. So of course I can do that.
Yeah.
But I never will have any sort of medicine in that piece I've cut off.
No.
And when I just walk over and I want to sit here, okay, I can sit here. But I don't think that the tree necessarily will talk with me.
I think that's a really important point, that like when we talk about medicine and plants as medicine, there's the physical aspect of the plant, but if we only look at the physical aspect, we're missing out of the most important aspect, which is the energy, the spiritual aspect of it, which comes from the plant spirit. And like the energy, the consciousness, whatever words you want to put on that, the consciousness of the plant. And if you just come and steal from it, basically raping it, or like, and I know that's a really harsh words to use, but I think with some things it really like it helps us open up. Whoa, oh, that's a crazy word. Like, yeah, if you're just coming and taking things that this plant has been spending so much energy making, if you just come and steal it, it's not gonna give you all the goodies. And for me, that's, in some ways I really like to compare relationships to plants with sexual relationships between humans, because it is the same. If you come and just want to take sex from another person, you can have sex, but it will be just sex, and there will not be the lovemaking and the whole point, like the whole energetic world that can open up when you really start creating love between two people.
You're talking about intimacy.
Intimacy, yeah, that's a good, yeah. So it's, and you can have that with plants too. That sort of intimacy where you're actually respectful of the other being's boundaries, and then when you do that also with a human, if you come to your partner not because you want something from them or they should give you something, but coming because you want to connect and you want to be intimate and you want to be in service and you want to relate and you want to explore, then what can open up can be so much bigger. And it's not about coming, and it's not about these physical things. It becomes about something different. And for me, that's like a main point with connecting with plants. Because very often we humans come and say, oh, I want to connect with plants. Well, then I guess it's about what plants can I use for what. Then it's again me wanting to use the plants, either the physicality of it, but it can also be the energy of the plants.
It's the same thing, yeah. If you come to someone, hey, I want to have this from you.
Yes.
Then,
No.
yeah.
If you come with a big piece of chocolate and say, hey, I love you, I want to help you, do you need me to move a box or something? They're going to be like, no, sit down here and I'm going to give you a great hug and I'm going to, make dinner for you. Maybe not, but like in that way of respect. Mm-hmm. And I think you have a really good point with this thing of honoring the no, both between humans but also with plants. And sometimes I at least have had this, a no means that something is wrong, where a no doesn't mean that something is wrong, but that's the fear of it, right? If the plant says, no, you cannot harvest me, then I'm doing something wrong. Like, no, it might not be the time. The plant might want to have a week more sunshine to be super powerful. Or you're not coming with the right energy. Maybe I'm coming from that place of wanting something, like, and I think again many people would know that from a sexual partner. If they come needy, it's not the nicest thing to have sex with somebody who's needy.
No.
But someone who comes in service, yes please, I'll open the temple doors and let's put rose petals on the floor, And it's the same with plants. And so if we come, it's fine when we start relating. Like, we all make mistakes, and it's fine to just do whatever, but the more conscious we become with it, the more we also need to take responsibility and have open eyes for what we're doing. And I think I want to go back to the cacao that we're sitting with, because I think it's a really good example again. When is it honoring the cacao plant and honoring that it comes from the other end of the world, coming to here? When am I honoring it, and when am I using it? Using the high, misusing. When am I working with it, and when am I misusing it? And plant medicines like this that are so soft and gentle, also powerful, but we can misuse them. Again, they don't run away. They're not going to scratch us back. Energetically they might. That's the thing. But in the physicality, not.
Now that is the aspect of plant medicine which makes it so different to any sort of, I would say, Western medicine. Then we look into the components, and then there are saturated fats, not good in the cacao. Then there are other things in it. Oh yeah, this is able to open the heart, and this is able to do that, and this is going on this receptor, and then you're feeling a sort of a high, and all of that. We can analyze this until the depth of, but not until the depth of its being.
No.
So we can take scientifically a substance, an impersonalized nothingness, and split it even more apart and look in all those kind of dead parts, and combining that knowledge with what happens in our body spoken in a glass. So all what science in that way is doing is looking about those, I would say, dead in a way, spiritual dead components. So, but as soon as we add value, personality, gratitude, love,
Gratitude.
this medicine becomes something very different. It still has all its physical properties,
Yeah.
and therefore science is beautiful. We can talk about things, which there's things doing. But if you want to have more than a cup of cacao, if you actually want to have a plant medicine, then you have to start from somewhere else. And there is coming on what we talked before. There cannot be misuse.
No, then
You
it's not
cannot
medicine.
get a cup of plant medicine in your hand and being with it and misusing it. It won't be simply there.
I've been thinking just with that theme that you're saying now. You know, sage, white sage, an amazing plant. I really love that plant, and it's been very popular. I guess like Hollywood and stuff made it very popular. We use sage to cleanse our energy. So sage has become this thing everybody needs. But the thing is, sage only grows very few places in the world. It grows, I think it's only in California. I don't know the state borders of what, but like they're around. And a lot, especially if you find wild harvested sage is usually a word for we went to a national park and we stole the sage, and we're getting a lot of money out of it. So thinking that something that is actually, and a lot of First Nation people are saying, don't use the sage, this is our sacred plant, use your own. So something that has been stolen somewhere, taken for a purpose of money, not respected, and then coming to your home and you think you can cleanse your energy with it, then it's like, hey, there is, in a way, blood on the hands here. So this isn't clean. This isn't, honored. And of course there's something of praying to your food, and you can honor it again where you are. And I think that's an important aspect, but but I think it's better if it's honored all the way through. Yeah.
And plants are so forgiving us, so
Yeah.
they are not punishing us. Most of them. We know some else.
Some of them are.
Some of them can, but that is
yeah.
more an advanced talk about
Yeah,
that.
that's not going to know. Yeah. I think what you said before about, because my experience is that plants are very forgiving, very tolerant, very sharing. Like sharing their body, their wisdom, their energy. They're so generous, most plants. And also the plants remember. Plants remember how our parents were with them, how our grandparents were with them, how their parents were with them. Like we were planting some seeds the other day in the garden, and my mother was there, and suddenly she was like, oh wait, I remember how my mother did this. And then she started remembering this ancestral wisdom of how to plant potatoes. We were working with radishes anyway, with the tools, but also, especially the trees. When we're talking about trees and these old beings, I really feel that all this, they can help us access to all this ancestral knowledge. They remember my great grandmothers sitting under, under them. The spirit remember.
Our far ancestors using birch wood for all sorts of things, making cups and firewood and shelter and tar and
and I
birch
think
remembers.
I really want to mention in this conversation that, like, there's no better relationship than others. Obviously, a relationship that is misusing isn't a good one. But if we're talking about all the healthy ones, healthy relationships, it's not that having this deep spiritual connection to pine makes it better than my relationship to sunflower, and a very practical relationship, like the wood that your house is built out of, or if you really enjoy to eat beetroot, like, and it's just a nourishing my body kind of relationship. That's perfect. Like, the first step is simply making that relationship conscious. That means you become aware of it, like mindfulness. Like, I'm raising my arm and I am mindful that I'm raising my arm, which makes me right here in this moment present. And that's magic, that's medicine. So if I sit with a beetroot, and I'm aware that I'm sitting with a beetroot, and I might even know how the plant look, otherwise I can look it up, internet, yay. And then I'm eating the beetroot, first I'm feeling it. I'm like, wow, how would you like to be cooked today? Oh, fresh? That sounds good. Is there any other plants you want to have in that? Oh, carrot. Yeah, carrot could come. So, oh, you want to have lentils too? Yeah, sure. Let's bring lentils, That's a relationship too.
I think
our neighbor is making noise again.
Knocking
on the door.
Who is knocking on the door?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just where to find those plant spirits, where to find the entrance of the communication. And Nathaniel Hughes really describes it very nicely about the sensation reaching out to the plant in your mind and looking for that edge of the consciousness where theirs start. So the corner, reaching out to the corner of your being where you can meet another one. So if you have done something authentic relationship trainings, if you have done some ecstatic dance or 5 rhythm dance, you get a feeling for that as well with humans. Where's the boundaries of the people? When I come close, how feels that? Am I repelled or am I drawn in? And mostly if you are feeling something which a plant repels you, or you feel repelled, then this might be mostly a thing that this plant has some medicine for you.
Yeah, that's
and
the
it's
thing.
worth it of sitting there longer.
Yes, I think that's a really important perspective, that like so the language of plants is more intuitive. It's not gonna, and also not all humans are like straightforward, no bullshit kind of thing. We still have to kind of analyze, what does this human actually mean, most.
Yeah, we have to analyze beyond the words.
Beyond the words,
so people
yes.
are talking and talking and talking, but what are they really saying behind the words?
Yes, and it's the same with plants, but that language is more intuitive, so it goes more in the body, it goes more into sensation. So this feeling of ease, a feeling of pain, or like you can get physical pain going and sitting with a plant, and suddenly your joint starts hurting, or you get a headache. Like that's a very clear sign. But what you're saying, which I just want to highlight, is a headache in this instance isn't necessarily bad. It isn't necessarily that the plant says get away. It might be the plant having medicine for you, but it's medicine that's not necessarily comfortable. Not all of it is super comfortable. Sometimes there is some bigger traumas, some misconceptions that we have, and very easily, if things becomes uncomfortable, we see it as something bad, instead of just seeing, hey, nausea, that's a sign, that's a messenger, what do you want to say? Headache, that's a messenger, what do you want to say? And for me, there are like 2 really important feelings. Like when we feel drawn in and we feel peaceful and we feel happy, that's nice to follow, that's easy. But the 2 ones I want to mention is, one is when we feel that yuck feeling. We talked about it this morning, that like, things is a little off. Things are just like, I just want to go back to bed. Or like, why? That feeling is important. And for me, usually that feeling is an invitation to slow down. It usually comes if I'm like in the morning and I have a meeting and I have all this stuff to do and I don't want to do yoga and it's like, hey, because it's asking me just to sit and look out the window, not try to be spiritual, not try to be, just be here. And so the yuck feeling, and that feeling might be different for you, for somebody else, but for me that yuck feeling is like, that's important. And the other one is for me when I feel that I've done something wrong. Like when I get a no. or that I feel something is wrong, so I always make, for instance, with brewing this cup of cacao, I don't count it. I cut until I feel that it's enough. And sometimes my eyes definitely want to have more cacao cutted than what is feeling right. And I'm standing there like, no, can I get a little more? And then I can start feeling guilty, or like, oh no, am I misusing? That whole can start in my mind. And that's really important too. And so for you, they might look different, those feelings, but these on the edge of the comfortability. And sometimes it is simply stopping, taking a breath, and then you get the answer. And I think for me, that's when you're saying, hey, go and relate with a plant, sit with it, feel the edge of your being. For me, to do any of this, we need to slow down. As we're saying, plants can't run away, and we're used to putting consciousness to something that's fast, something that can move, something that can speak. So when a dog gets a little more consciousness, right, than a snail. A snail, it's not a conscious thing, it's just slime, right? And so a tree, what? It's just standing there. I mean, there's so much mysteries in trees. There's so much we don't know. Even when you then... Anyway, trees are awesome. So slowing down to be able to listen to the language. It's really essential. And we think we're slow, we think our heart is open, we think all these things, but once we start diving down the path, realizing it can be even slower.
Yeah, there's always
even more present, even more like, so we have to slow down, we have to be present in the moment so that we can listen.
Yeah, I think the whole plant communication is actually a training in intuition.
Yeah.
And as you said, this does not work in a mindset of shopping in IKEA. That you need to be highly sophisticated in your intuition of being there and still being connected. This is all meant to be you being disconnected, to let you guide by that sort of spirit. And our whole world is sort of built up on this, with all the neon signs. Might there be a neon or not, but all the advertisements, everything what's going on is to gather our attention.
Yes.
So, and we are so full of that actually what we have to do all the time is reducing our capability of attention to be there. And what happens, because we are getting used to that, those words getting even bigger.
Yeah.
And so our society is full of those big stimulants, which is a ton of coffee, and all those things which basically bring us away from ourselves and the connection, and therefore going slow and being outside, maybe a little bit away from all those what makes noise. Our cell phones becoming smartphones, becoming platforms of advertisements all the time. Want to have our attention all the time, and we are somehow, it rings and immediately we have to look at. There is no time of getting in contact to such a sophisticated being, which is so much beyond that physical world. So the invitation is to take your time, shut off your phone, and say hi to the plants, and maybe bring them a gift, something. And that is then, now we are there. What can we give as a human? You want to plug another plant and give it to another plant? Or how does that work? You want to rip out a stone from its distinct place where it has lain for whatsoever thousands of years and move it on? Or what you want to do? Bring a cup of water? As it's none of that is you.
Yeah.
So
All of that is gifted.
All of that is a gift already.
Mm.
So what is the gift we can give? And this is song. This might be beautiful words of gratefulness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is actually a gift we can give to the world, which is unique, and which I believe is what we have to do to be a good, how to say, a good part of this orchestra of the world. So we have to do our work.
Yeah.
So, and that is what we really can contribute. So, and with that, when you come with that open heart, open mind to a plant, then you be at least a step closer. You might not get an answer yet, but that is the start of a relationship.
Yeah.
And as soon, I guarantee you, as soon as all of this comes from a place that you at the end want something, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forget it. You might think you get something, but you don't get it. Because everything what you get from a plant has to be gifted.
Yes.
And we cannot just take.
No. We can, but then the magic isn't in it. The true intimacy, the true medicine isn't in it. I want to just go along with this thing with attention. So now we've been talking about relating to the plant in your neighborhood or the food that you eat, and then there's also I don't want to say deeper ways of relating or connecting, but in a way that's also the word I want to use, which is for when you do something like a plant immersion or plant initiation, you do a plant dieta, a plant quest, whatever name that has. Basically, you go deeper into connecting with the spirit of the plant, and through that you start receiving medicine from that plant. And that's something you can share with others. Usually plants want us to share. They in my perspective, plants want humans to be joyful, happy, dancing, singing in community. They want the same things as us. Plants are great, you know. And so when we want to do that, we fill our time. We might have different capabilities of how much we can do in a day, but it all gets filled up, whether it is by drinking a cup of coffee or having a conversation or working or reading a book. We fill, like, everything is always a full cup, kind of. And if it's not a full cup, you fill it with something. So if we want to start filling our cup with the wisdom of nature, start filling our cup relating to plants, there's something we need to take out of the cup so there is room for it. And that could be shutting off our phone when we go on a walk and not just calling our friend at the first moment. But if we're going into deeper relationships, let's say like a plant diet, a plant quest, something like that, that's a big part of it, that we remove the noise. It's just funny because our neighbor is making all the noise. It's such a mirror. Thank you, universe. Just a little higher. So we remove noise. In the case of a plant dieta or a plant quest, that would be removing the phone, social media, contact to the outside world while you're doing it, removing movies, removing all these things that are not you and are not the consciousness of nature and this present moment, but all these other loud messages that want to speak to you. Could also be removing the noise of sugar, of coffee, of everything that's noisy, everything that want to grab your attention, so there's room for something else, which might be you being present in this moment with the plant. And then of course it starts getting filled up. It takes down in another slowness, another
rhythm.
Another rhythm. And then it starts shifting. And when you're kind of slowly, the more you master the process, you start knowing, like any process, you know how it goes, right? And for me, when I start removing things, usually the first layers that comes up can be like frustration or sadness or like all these things that we usually put a lid on with these things. Oh, I don't know, today I feel yucky, today I'll eat a cake, or like I'll call a friend, and then the energy of that friend is going to help me feel better. So when we remove all of that, we have to deal with what is. And the more intensely we remove things, like if we're fasting a lot at the same time and we're like completely in isolation, that can make the processes really big and the holes really big, and we can really learn something through that, and the plant starts bringing its medicine and its energy into us, and opens up both for our processes and our personal development and our traumas, and like actually healing the things, but also filling it up with the energy, like both with our, what's our intention, what is our story, but also with the energy of nature, with the wisdom of nature. And so there's no, in my perspective, there's no like right or wrong way. Maybe there are wrong ways, now that we're saying it. But what I mean by that is that this more intense way, which would be, for instance, as a traditional plant dieta in the Shipibo tradition, like what we are doing, or in any other Amazonian tribe, can usually be really intense. So like you're for weeks on end, and you're like fasting in silence, in solitude, in the jungle. And for some people, like back here, just one day alone in nature would be enough. Like for some, that would be really beyond their capabilities, where maybe it's a week, but they're in their own house, sleeping in their own bed, and slowly removing things. And I just wanna mention this because the extremity isn't necessarily better. The more I connect with plants and learning from a plant like cacao, but also from especially the Nordic plants, I feel the medicine of softness is key. To be soft to ourselves. And knowing that many of these traditions of connecting deeply with nature comes from tribes that are already more connected to nature. So when they have to empty their cup, they have to do more to empty it, because they're already full of plant connection, and they're already, like in general, more connected and used to being alone in nature, used to fasting on end. So for them to take that extra step at the edge of their being to meet the consciousness of a plant, usually they'll go a little further, right? And it doesn't have to be just plant consciousness, it can also be like Sundance or whichever other tribe or tradition. And so when we come from a Westerner and suddenly, thinking that it's the same for a 45-year-old woman from Copenhagen that has been dealing with stress for 30 years, that might not be her opening, that might not be her, what's most healthy for her or her body. So I think there's really like a power in removing these things, so there's room for the wisdom of nature, room for connecting with plants, but really doing it in a way that's healthy for us and our body. Yeah. I want to mention that. I think it's super important. Which is not that everything has to be comfortable all the time. Yeah, we're gonna, it's gonna get uncomfortable. There's things when we open up. It's not all, like Thich Nhat Hanh says. He says, no mud, no lotus. There is mud. It's part of it. It's like you can't say I want the right side but not the left side. Suffering and happiness isn't separated. And so also this idea that we're going to be 100% connected to nature all the time if we start connecting with plants is also an illusion. We also experience moments of disconnection. It's a dance. And finding our way in it. Being gentle to ourselves while we do it, I think, is such a powerful medicine. Yeah, we have had a long conversation. I think maybe to end, I just want to hear what's your 3 favorite plants right now? I know all plants are great. Are there any plants right now where you're like, these are just speaking to me a lot?
I have to say cacao because we're drinking it.
Cacao, yes. Yes.
It's difficult from having so many friends and then picking a favorite.
Yeah, well, what if it's not a favorite? What if it's just like recently this is a plant that you're exploring, or
I think always it's the plants which I have dealt with it in the shorter past, so
yeah.
which is not so long ago. They are closer in a way, so the experience with them is still fresh.
And which plants are that right now?
That would be birch, of course, and bobinsana. That is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, again, so many great ones. I'm not going to mention cacao, but cacao is always, in my life. Marigold, also called calendula. In Danish, that would be mournful. When I found out that calendula and mournful was the same plant, I was like, phew. Anyway, that plant is really, we're growing it in our garden, and I'm using it in my yoni steams, and I'm just like really excited to start working physically, making oils with calendula, and just like really physically sitting with the plant more. When this summer I'm looking at them every day, seeing the small calendula pops up. So calendula, then chamomile, another sea plant. Calendula, chamomile, cacao. Chamomile, been underestimating that plant for a long time. I think in general we have kind of as a society, a prejudice against, like as if chamomile is just this boring calming plant. This old boring
You're only
lady.
triggered when you're sick.
Yeah, exactly. This old. Oh, there's no other tea. There's none of the interesting ones. Okay, here you get some chamomile, and I definitely feel chamomile's power and strength and medicine, and so we're growing a lot of that in our garden too. So I'm really excited to connect even deeper with chamomile, and then recently pine. Yeah, I've also just added pine. I'm gonna facilitate our pine and birch dietas this summer. So pine for me is really a strong, centered, stable tree. So deep, so much wisdom, so wow, ancestral wisdom and true strength, deep roots, strong trunk, and all its needles are just, it's so stable, it looks the same if it's under 10 meters of snow, if it's 40 degrees, right? It's so powerful. Yeah. Those are the plants for me right now. And if anybody wants to work more with Stephan, how can they find you, or in which way?
Where they can find you. On our homepage, of course.
Yeah. Which is mightytree.dk. Yeah, if you want to connect more with Stephan or learn, and he's facilitating ceremonies and retreats, plant connections, dietas, individual sessions, creating ceremonial items. Yeah, is there anything you feel like mentioning here at the end?
Yeah, start exploring with the plants. I would love if you can get an idea of what it is to start a communication with it. And if you want to go deeper to that, we're here. There are many ways of getting deeper in contact, and one is basically, as in the human world as well, I know that guy is good friends with Birch, so let's go to him and let him introduce me to it. I guess you know what I want to go to. So then it's a friend of a friend, and your connection can become from from the first moment on, deeper and more intense. And that is the work we are doing, basically, in all of our ceremonies. We connect people with the plant spirits and the plant world. So, main thing of our work is to connect to plants, and then they become, hopefully, our allies, and then they tell what they want to have, and mostly it is that people get in contact with them. So it's part of what we've been set to do.
Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, I also feel very passionate about helping people create conscious, healthy, respectful, rich, nourished relationships to plants. And it doesn't have to be exotic plants from the other end of the earth. It can be the dandelion in your garden, the earth right under your feet. I think there's such a power in the plants that the medicine we need grows right outside of our door, usually. And I will say, every year I find new plants in our garden where I'm like, you were not growing here last year. Like, who are you? And let's talk, And I work with plants, I collaborate with plants, and also they're my bosses. Plants are so wise, so aligned usually, and connected to the ecosystem that we're all connected to. There's so much aligned to Mother Earth, and I trust the wisdom, especially of the plants that I diet, and the plants that are my teachers, so to speak. So I don't owe any plants or any plant spirits. I work for them, and I think that's a big difference. Yeah, I want to say thank you to the cacao, the blue lotus, and the almonds, the cayenne pepper, and cardamom. Cardamom. That was in our cacao today. That has been part of this conversation. And I want to say thank you to our neighbor. With all the noise, see, now there's quiet again. We just needed a lot of noise through this conversation. Symbolically, when we're talking about removing noise so we can listen to the energy of plants, of course, there needs to be some here as well. That's another way the plants are communicating. Yeah, so the invitation from here is go out without your phone and go try to connect with a tree or a plant, or whatever feels calling to you. Or if it feels like it's just, really not calling, maybe there's something there, like a friend that's really triggering us. And then good luck with it.
Yeah. Good luck, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.